Before Yul Brynner came around, the old saying, "bald is beautiful," never even existed. He helped kick off a trend that would transcend generations. Even Michael Jordan might have borrowed his signature chrome dome look from Brynner. Surprisingly, Yul Brynner could grow a full head of hair had he wanted to, but he first shaved his hair for his iconic role in The King and I, and ended up liking the way he looked so much, he decided to keep it. What was only ever intended to be a temporary grooming choice for a film role became an aesthetic he would rock for the rest of his life. While repping the cue ball look, Brynner won 2 Tony Awards and eventually an Academy Award for the film adaptation of The King and I. Yul Brynner was tremendously proud of his heritage. A lot of celebs hail from pretty diverse backgrounds, but Brynner was especially proud of his lineage. His family was from Russia, but they also claimed Swiss, Mongol, and Romani ancestry. The Roma people are sometimes referred to as gypsies, but it should be noted that term is considered offensive these days. Brynner was so intensely proud of his heritage that later in life, he even held the honorary title of being the president of the International Romani Union. He would hold that prestigious title until his death. Yul's father was a mining engineer who eventually left his home to run off with a Russian actress. His mom was also an actress, but when her husband abandoned his family, she scooped up the kids and traveled to China. Several years later, the Brynner family moved once again to Paris, France, fearing a war between China and Japan. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. And stick around to see why Yul Brynner gladly welcomed being typecast in The King and I. He was a trained circus performer. While living in Paris, Yul and his little sister landed small gigs playing guitar and singing at Parisian nightclubs, while training during the day to become a trapeze artist. Brynner toured with Cirque d'Hiver for 5 years, before unfortunately sustaining a debilitating back injury. Luckily, that roadblock just pushed him in the direction of acting. It's taken historians decades to piece together an accurate retelling of his origin story, as he'd often tell a different version. He even joked once about this by quipping that, quote, "ordinary mortals need but one birthday." Journeying to America. Brynner briefly returned to China to pay his ailing mother a visit, but then he and his family made the life-changing move to the U.S. His sister Vera ended up finding work as a singer and ended up starring in the Broadway production of The Consul. That was probably the moment Brynner got his first taste for the spotlight and gained the desire to take his talents to the stage as well. But stardom was still years off, as he worked as a French-speaking radio announcer for the U.S. Office of War Information during the Second World War. It was around this time he also posed in the nude for world-renowned gay photographer George Platt Linz to make a little extra cash on the side. Destined for Broadway. In time, Brynner landed the role of Chinese student Tsai Yong for the Broadway production of Lute Song alongside actress Mary Marlin. His next big role was that of King Mongkut of Siam in Rodgers and Hammerstein's career-defining musical The King and I. He was only even ever considered for the part per the recommendation of Mary Martin. The music was originally intended to serve as a coming-out party, so to speak, for Gertrude Lawrence's character Anna, who tutored Mongkut's kids, but Brynner straight up stole the spotlight and mesmerized critics and audiences alike. Brynner went on to play King Mongkut for more than 4,625 performances over the next 30 years. Happy to be typecast. Brynner never seemed bothered by the fact he was typecast into a singular role. He once told the New York Times he would have enjoyed playing Henry Higgins in My Fair Lady if it weren't for his accent and looks. The only way he would have been able to pull that off is if he did it with a Mongolian touring company. Brynner played King Mongkut not only on stage, but the big screen as well, and for a time he reprised his role for a short-lived TV series. But even though the smooth-topped actor displayed an eager willingness to play the same role time and time again, that didn't mean he was without an ego. Frank Langella, one of Yul's castmates, once said Brynner possessed the unparalleled ability to shower himself with praise and added he was always just a stone's throw away from a full-length mirror. And when Lawrence died and Brynner was given top billing, Rodgers and Hammerstein said he burst into tears of joy. He was amusingly arrogant. Even though he was very clearly in love with himself, Brynner's hubris didn't seem to put off his co-stars too much. Notoriously, he and Steve McQueen used to duke it out over top dog status while on the set of The Magnificent Seven. As the story goes, Brynner would climb high atop a pile of dirt so he could loom over McQueen and hurl taunts and insults in his direction. Steve in turn would react by attempting to kick the pile of dirt, hoping it would crumble under Brynner's pompous feet. Yul was also infamous for some of his more outlandish requests. While shooting the World War II drama film Morituri, Brynner once demanded that a helipad be brought on the ship so he could be flown in and out every day during the film's production. On another occasion, he commissioned a huge lift to be built that would hoist his limo into the King and I's theater so he could avoid having to deal with his legion of adoring fans. Even though Brynner could be needlessly difficult to work with at times, many in his orbit still adored him. He saw the world through his own unique lens and found beauty in the most unexpected of places. He was a bisexual icon. Brynner's love life included rendezvous and liaisons with dozens of women as well as men. He was married 4 times. His first was to actress Virginia Gilmore from 1944 to 60. His next was to Chilean model Doris Kleiner. They married in 1960 and divorced in 1967. His third marriage was to Jacqueline Thion de la Chaume in 1971, although they called it quits in 1981. His fourth and final marriage was to ballerina Kathy Lee in 1983, and they remained together until his death in 1985. Additionally, he carried on countless affairs with stars like Marlene Dietrich, Judy Garland, Joan Crawford, and Ingrid Bergman. He also had relationship with male stars like Paul Newman, Herb Hatfield, Jean Cocteau, and Manuel Puig, the screenwriter of Kiss of the Spider-Woman. In the 1969 anti-establishment film The Magic Christian, Brynner played a drag queen who cruises Roman Polanski, and rumor has it that wasn't his first time in drag either. It's also said Brynner enjoyed a brief fling with actor Marlon Brando back in the day. He was an anti-smoking advocate. In 1983, he discovered a lump on his vocal cords. He died of lung cancer on October 10, 1985 at age 65. Before his passing, he teamed up with the American Cancer Society to put out a public service announcement making use of a clip from his Good Morning America interview. One of his dying wishes was to produce an anti-smoking ad. He knew that death from lung cancer was not far off in the horizon, and in fact, that commercial premiered on all the major U.S. television networks just a few days after his death. In the ad, he looks directly into the camera for 30 seconds, while admonishing the audience to not pick up smoking. He expressed his deepest regrets for picking the habit up in the first place, and added that if he could take back smoking, he wouldn't be sitting there at all talking about cancer. A man of many interests. Not only was Brynner an actor and director, but also an avid photographer and author who penned several books. His daughter Victoria compiled a book of his work titled Yul Brynner, Photographer. It's a collection of his photos of family, friends, and several fellow actors. It also featured photos he took while serving as a UN Special Consultant on Refugees. He also authored the book Bring Forth the Children, A Journey to the Forgotten People of Europe and the Middle East in 1960, which featured photos of himself and Magnum photographer Inga Morath. And he also published the Yul Brynner Cookbook, Food Fit for the King and You, in 1983. He was also an excellent guitarist and a gifted singer. In 1967, he and Alyosha Dmitrovich released the album The Gypsy and I. Yul Brynner sings gypsy songs on Vanguard Records. Now it's time to hear from you. In the comments section, share with us your favorite memory of Yul Brynner. Granted, most of you probably know him from The King and I, but some of you likely have other fond memories. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to Facts First if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.